One day, your life will end, and none of the things you worried about every day will matter anymore. Your stress, your fear, your overthinking, and your need for approval will disappear instantly. But one question will remain. Did you truly live? Most people never ask themselves this question until it is too late. They spend years mentally imprisoned by fear and emotional exhaustion. They postpone happiness while chasing security, approval, and comfort, believing they still have more time. But life moves faster than people realize. Before they know it, their best years are gone, and they are left wondering why they never allowed themselves to feel fully alive. The painful truth is that you can lose your entire life trying to avoid discomfort. You can spend decades surviving while your soul quietly dies inside. But it does not have to stay this way. One day, you will either look back with peace because you truly lived, or with regret because fear controlled your entire life. Chapter 1. Stop living for other people. Most people slowly lose themselves because they spend their entire life trying to satisfy everyone around them. They make choices based on what society, family, friends, or other people expect, instead of asking themselves what truly makes them happy. They stay quiet to avoid criticism, hide their real emotions, and pretend to be someone they are not just to feel accepted. After a while, this becomes a habit. You stop listening to your own heart and begin living only for approval. You become so focused on pleasing others that you forget what you actually want from life. But the truth is simple. No matter how hard you try, you will never make everyone happy. Some people will judge you, even when your intentions are good. Some people will misunderstand you, no matter how kind you are. If you keep changing yourself just to avoid criticism, you will slowly destroy your own peace and happiness. Living for other people may keep them comfortable, but it will leave your soul feeling empty and exhausted. Real peace begins when you finally stop asking everyone for permission to be yourself. The moment you start choosing your own happiness instead of constantly chasing approval, you begin to feel free again. Chapter 2. Fear is keeping you mentally trapped. Fear controls the lives of many people without them even realizing it. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment, and fear of losing comfort stop people from becoming who they truly want to be. Instead of following their dreams, they choose safety. Instead of taking chances, they remain stuck in situations that make them unhappy, because staying familiar feels easier than facing uncertainty. Over time, fear slowly becomes a mental prison. Many people want to change their life, but they keep waiting because they are afraid of making mistakes. They worry too much about what could go wrong, so they never give themselves the chance to discover what could go right. The sad truth is that fear has destroyed more dreams than failure ever will. Most people are not failing because they are weak. They are failing because fear keeps stopping them before they even begin. But life was never meant to be lived in constant fear. Growth always requires courage. Happiness requires risk. Every meaningful change in life begins the moment you stop allowing fear to control every decision you make. Yes, taking risks can be scary, but staying mentally trapped for the rest of your life is even more painful. Sometimes the biggest risk is spending your whole life pretending you are okay, when deep inside you feel completely unfulfilled. Chapter 3. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. One of the biggest reasons people never truly live is because they keep waiting for the perfect moment to finally become happy. They tell themselves that one day they will start living differently. One day they will follow their dreams, travel more, rest more, love more, and become the person they truly want to be. But while they keep waiting for life to become perfect, time quietly continues moving forward. Many people believe happiness will come later when they have more money, later when life feels more stable, later when they finally stop feeling afraid. But the problem is that life never becomes completely perfect. There will always be responsibilities, uncertainty, stress, and problems to deal with. If you keep waiting for the perfect conditions before allowing yourself to truly live, you may spend your entire life waiting. This is how people slowly lose years without realizing it. They become trapped in routines that make them emotionally exhausted, but they keep convincing themselves that someday things will change. Deep inside, they know they are unhappy, but fear and overthinking stop them from taking action. They delay their happiness so many times that eventually delaying becomes a habit. And before they realize it, life begins to feel empty and repetitive. The truth is that the perfect moment does not exist. Life is unpredictable and temporary. Nobody knows how much time they truly have. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Yet most people live as if they have endless years ahead of them. They postpone joy, postpone peace, and postpone becoming themselves, while time quietly disappears in the background. Many people reach a point in life where they suddenly realize how much time they wasted worrying about things that never truly mattered. They spent years trying to impress people who did not care about them. They spent years mentally trapped by fear and self-doubt. They spent years overthinking instead of actually living. And one day they look back with regret, because they realize they were physically alive but emotionally disconnected from life itself. You do not need to have everything figured out before you begin changing your life. You do not need complete certainty before taking a step forward. Some of the best moments in life happen when you stop overthinking and finally trust yourself enough to move forward despite fear. Growth does not happen when you stay comfortable forever. Growth begins when you stop waiting and finally start living. Sometimes people think living fully means doing something dramatic, but often it is much simpler than that. It means finally listening to yourself. It means allowing yourself to rest without guilt. It means protecting your peace instead of constantly chasing approval. It means being present enough to enjoy small moments instead of always mentally living somewhere else. Life is happening right now, not someday in the future. Every sunrise, every conversation, every peaceful moment, and every opportunity you have today is part of your life story. The saddest thing is that many people only realize the value of these moments after they are gone. So stop waiting for the perfect time to finally choose happiness. Stop waiting for permission to become yourself. Stop believing you need to earn the right to live peacefully. The perfect moment you are searching for may never come, but this moment right now is real. And if you continue delaying your happiness forever, you may eventually realize that you spent your entire life preparing to live instead of actually living. Chapter 4. Happiness does not come from outside. Most people spend their entire lives searching for happiness in the outside world. They believe happiness will finally arrive when they make more money, become successful, enter the perfect relationship, gain more attention, or receive approval from others. They keep chasing one thing after another, hoping that something external will finally remove the emptiness they feel inside. But even after achieving many of these things, countless people still feel emotionally exhausted and deeply unhappy. This is because external success cannot heal internal emptiness. You can have money and still feel lonely. You can have attention and still feel insecure. You can achieve goals and still feel mentally trapped. Many people look successful from the outside while secretly struggling inside, because their peace depends entirely on circumstances constantly changing around them. The moment something goes wrong, their happiness disappears, because it was never built on a strong inner foundation. Modern life teaches people to constantly chase more. more success, more validation, more possessions, more status. But the more people chase happiness outside themselves, the more disconnected they often become from their own inner peace. Their mind never rests. Even after achieving one goal, they immediately begin worrying about the next thing. They become trapped in an endless cycle of pressure and dissatisfaction. That is why so many people feel emotionally drained even when their life looks good from the outside. True happiness is not simply about having everything you want. True happiness is being able to feel peace within yourself even when life is imperfect. It is learning how to enjoy the present moment instead of constantly believing your life begins somewhere in the future. Many people cannot enjoy life because their mind is always somewhere else. When they are at home, they worry about work. When they finally achieve something, they worry about losing it. When they spend time with loved ones, their thoughts are still trapped in stress and anxiety. Their body exists in the present moment, but their mind is constantly escaping reality. And this is why life starts feeling empty. You stop noticing small, beautiful moments because your mind is too distracted. You stop appreciating simple things because you become addicted to chasing the next achievement. You stop feeling alive because your inner peace depends on conditions that never stay stable forever. Real happiness begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself emotionally. It begins when you finally understand that your peace matters too. Not just your productivity, not just your image, not just your ability to satisfy everyone else. Your emotional well-being matters. Your mental peace matters. Your relationship with yourself matters. Sometimes happiness is much simpler than people think. Sometimes happiness is waking up without anxiety controlling your mind. Sometimes happiness is being able to sit alone without feeling empty. Sometimes happiness is enjoying a quiet morning without constantly checking for validation from the world. Sometimes happiness is protecting your peace instead of arguing with people who only drain your energy. A calm mind can find beauty in ordinary life. But a restless mind can turn even a beautiful life into suffering. This is why inner peace is more valuable than many external things people spend their lives chasing. Because once your mind becomes calmer, life itself begins to feel lighter. Small moments begin to feel meaningful again. You laugh more naturally. You breathe more deeply. You stop feeling like you are constantly running emotionally. Many people think they need to completely change their life to finally become happy, but often the biggest transformation happens internally. Happiness grows when you stop fighting yourself every day, when you stop comparing your journey to everyone else, when you stop believing your worth depends on achievements, approval, or perfection. The truth is that life will never be perfect. There will still be difficult days, painful experiences, disappointments, and uncertainty. But inner peace allows you to experience those challenges without completely losing yourself emotionally. People who constantly depend on external things for happiness become emotionally unstable because the outside world always changes. Relationships change, money changes, situations change, people change. But when happiness begins growing from within, your peace becomes stronger and more stable. You stop needing constant validation just to feel valuable. You stop chasing every distraction trying to escape yourself. You stop living like your happiness is always somewhere far away from you. And slowly, life begins to feel real again. You begin enjoying moments instead of rushing through them. You begin listening to yourself again. You begin understanding that peace is not something you buy or achieve someday in the future. Peace is something you build within yourself by learning how to slow down, let go, and stop mentally torturing yourself every single day. Because at the end of life, the people who truly lived are not always the people who had the most money, attention, or status. Often they are the people who learned how to live peacefully, love deeply, appreciate small moments, and remain connected to themselves in a world constantly trying to pull them away from their own soul. Chapter 5. Your mind can become your biggest prison. Many people are not physically trapped, but mentally they feel exhausted every single day. Their own thoughts slowly destroy their peace, happiness, and emotional strength. Even during quiet moments, their mind never truly rests. They constantly overthink the future, replay painful memories from the past, imagine worst-case scenarios, and carry invisible stress that nobody else can fully see. From the outside they may look normal, but inside they feel mentally overwhelmed. This is one of the most dangerous forms of suffering, because the prison exists inside the mind itself. Overthinking slowly steals the ability to enjoy life. Instead of experiencing the present moment, the mind keeps creating fear, doubt, and anxiety. A small problem becomes a huge emotional burden because the mind keeps feeding it with endless thoughts. One mistake gets replayed 1,000 times. One fear creates 10 more fears. Slowly, the mind turns ordinary life into constant mental pressure. Many people wake up tired, not because their body is exhausted, but because their mind never stops fighting itself. They overanalyze conversations. They worry about things that may never happen. They think too much about people who barely think about them. They create imaginary problems and emotionally suffer over situations that do not even exist yet. After a while, this mental exhaustion becomes their normal state of living. The sad truth is that many people spend years trapped inside their own head without realizing how much life they are missing. They cannot enjoy peaceful moments because their thoughts immediately pull them somewhere else. Even when good things happen, they struggle to feel happiness because anxiety keeps interrupting every moment. Their mind becomes so noisy that they forget what real inner peace even feels like. But one of the most important truths to understand is this: not every thought deserves your attention. Just because your mind creates a fearful thought does not mean it is true. Just because your mind imagines failure does not mean failure will happen. The human mind naturally produces fear, doubt, and negativity, especially when it is left uncontrolled. But many people immediately believe every thought they have without questioning it, and this is why they suffer so much emotionally. A mentally trapped person treats every negative thought like reality. But a mentally peaceful person learns how to observe thoughts without becoming controlled by them. They understand that thoughts come and go like clouds passing through the sky. They do not attach themselves emotionally to every fear their mind creates. This changes everything. The moment you stop feeding every negative thought with endless attention, your mind slowly becomes quieter. You begin breathing more deeply. You stop carrying emotional weight that does not belong to you. Life starts feeling lighter because you are no longer mentally fighting yourself every moment of the day. Many people believe peace will come after they control every situation around them, but that is impossible. Life will always contain uncertainty. There will always be situations you cannot fully control. Real peace comes from learning how to calm the chaos inside your own mind, instead of constantly trying to control the outside world. Your thoughts can either become your greatest source of suffering or your greatest source of freedom. If you constantly feed fear, comparison, regret, and negativity, your mind will slowly become a prison. But if you begin protecting your mental peace, your entire life starts changing. You stop reacting emotionally to everything. You stop allowing small situations to destroy your inner balance. You stop carrying unnecessary mental noise everywhere you go. Many people do not realize how addicted they have become to stress. Their mind constantly searches for something to worry about because chaos has become familiar to them. Even when life becomes peaceful, they still create problems mentally, because they no longer know how to simply relax and be present. But peace is possible. You do not need to mentally torture yourself every day. You do not need to carry every burden alone. You do not need to keep replaying old pain forever. Healing begins when you finally allow your mind to slow down. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop fighting every thought in your head. Stop trying to control everything. Stop giving your energy to every fear, every opinion, and every negative possibility your mind creates. Your mind should be a place of clarity, not constant suffering. Because at the end of the day, no amount of money, success, or approval can truly help someone whose own mind has become their enemy. But once your mind becomes calmer, life itself begins to feel more peaceful. You begin noticing beauty again. You begin enjoying ordinary moments again. You begin feeling emotionally free again. And that is when you finally realize something powerful. The prison door was never locked. Your mind simply convinced you it was. Chapter 6. You do not have unlimited time. One of the biggest illusions people live with is the belief that they still have plenty of time. They think they can start living later. They believe they can heal later, become happy later, follow their dreams later, and finally become themselves later. Because of this illusion, they continue postponing their life every single day without realizing how quickly time is disappearing. Most people wake up every morning repeating the same exhausting cycle. They rush through their days stressed, mentally distracted, emotionally overwhelmed, and spiritually disconnected from themselves. They become so busy surviving that they forget how to actually live. Days become weeks, weeks become years, and eventually life begins moving so fast that people suddenly wonder where all the time went. The frightening truth is that life can change at any moment. A normal day can suddenly become your last normal day. A conversation can become your last conversation with someone you love. A healthy body can suddenly become weak. A person you expected to stay forever can disappear unexpectedly. Yet despite how fragile life truly is, most people continue living as if they are guaranteed endless tomorrows. They postpone happiness because they think there is still time. They postpone peace because they think life will slow down someday. They postpone their dreams because fear convinces them they can always try later. But later is never guaranteed. Many people spend their healthiest years emotionally trapped inside stress, anxiety, and overthinking. Instead of enjoying life deeply, they constantly worry about the future or carry pain from the past. Their mind is never fully present. Even during beautiful moments, they are mentally somewhere else. They eat without tasting their food. They listen without truly hearing. They spend time with loved ones while their mind remains distracted by pressure and fear. And slowly, life passes by unnoticed. One day they suddenly realize they have been alive for years, but have barely felt truly alive at all. This is one of the greatest tragedies of modern life. People are physically alive but emotionally disconnected from existence itself. They move through life mechanically. Wake up, work, stress, sleep, repeat. Their soul becomes exhausted because they are constantly rushing through life without ever slowing down enough to truly experience it. Many people believe they are waiting for life to begin someday in the future, but life is already happening right now. Every ordinary moment matters more than people realize. The quiet mornings, the peaceful conversations, the moments of laughter, the sunsets you barely notice because your mind is too distracted. The people sitting beside you today may not be here forever. Your current version of life will not exist forever either. Everything is temporary. That truth may sound painful, but it is actually what makes life meaningful. If life lasted forever, people would never value anything. But because time is limited, every moment becomes precious. Every day becomes important. Every opportunity to love, heal, grow, and experience life becomes valuable. The problem is that many people only realize this after suffering changes them. Sometimes it takes heartbreak for someone to understand how short life truly is. Sometimes it takes illness. Sometimes it takes losing someone they deeply love. Suddenly, all the things they spent years stressing about no longer seem important anymore. The arguments, the endless worrying, the need for approval, the pressure to impress people, none of it matters as much as they once believed. And in those moments, people often realize something heartbreaking. They wasted too much time mentally trapped. They wasted too much time carrying fear instead of enjoying life. They wasted too much time overthinking instead of being present. They wasted too much time trying to satisfy everyone else while ignoring themselves completely. Many people reach old age filled with regret, not because they failed, but because they never truly allowed themselves to live. They abandoned their dreams to stay comfortable. They silenced themselves to avoid judgment. They ignored their happiness for years, believing there would always be more time later. But eventually time runs out for everyone. One day, your entire life will become memories. And when that moment comes, your money will not matter as much as you think. Your social image will not matter. The opinions of strangers will not matter. What will truly matter is whether you actually lived, whether you experienced life deeply, whether you protected your peace, whether you loved honestly, whether you became yourself before your story ended. This is why it is dangerous to spend your whole life mentally imprisoned by fear and overthinking. Fear steals time. Anxiety steals time. Constant stress steals time. Living only for approval steals time. And once time disappears, you can never get it back again. Many people assume they have years left to finally become happy, but the truth is that nobody truly knows how much time they have. Life is uncertain for everyone. That is why waiting forever to choose yourself is one of the saddest mistakes a person can make. You do not need to become perfect before you start living fully. You do not need to have every answer before choosing happiness. You do not need permission from society to protect your peace and enjoy your existence. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply slow down and remember that you are alive right now. Look at how fast life has already moved. Childhood disappeared quickly. Years passed quickly. People changed quickly. Entire chapters of your life ended before you even realized they were ending. And the future will move just as fast. This is why presence is so important. People spend too much time mentally living in the past or future while completely missing the present moment. But your life is not happening yesterday or tomorrow. Your life is happening now. Right now while you are breathing. Right now while your heart is beating. Right now while you still have opportunities ahead of you. Do not underestimate the value of an ordinary day. One peaceful morning can become a memory you wish you could relive someday. One conversation with someone you love can later become priceless. One moment of courage can completely change the direction of your life forever. Life is made of small moments, but most people are too distracted to notice them. Instead of enjoying life, they are constantly preparing for some future version of happiness. They tell themselves they will relax after success. They will become peaceful after solving every problem. They will enjoy life after becoming financially stable. But life never stops giving challenges. If you do not learn how to appreciate the present moment now, you may spend your entire life chasing a happiness that always feels far away. The truth is simple. You do not have unlimited time to become yourself. You do not have unlimited time to love people properly. You do not have unlimited time to heal emotionally. You do not have unlimited time to stop mentally torturing yourself with fear and overthinking. One day your life will end, just like every human being before you. And when that day comes, the deepest pain will not come from small mistakes or failed attempts. The deepest pain will come from realizing how much life you never allowed yourself to experience, because fear controlled you for too long. Do not let that happen to you. Do not spend your entire existence emotionally asleep. Do not waste your precious years trapped inside routines, stress, and endless mental pressure while your soul quietly begs for freedom. You deserve more than survival. You deserve to feel life deeply before it disappears. You deserve moments of peace instead of constant anxiety. You deserve freedom from endless overthinking. You deserve relationships that make you feel alive instead of emotionally exhausted. You deserve to wake up feeling connected to your own existence instead of feeling mentally numb every single day. Because at the end of life, nobody wishes they spent more time worrying. Nobody wishes they spent more years pretending to be someone else. Nobody wishes they stayed trapped in fear forever. Most people simply wish they had lived more honestly, loved more deeply, and appreciated life while they still had the chance. And the beautiful thing is this: you still have that chance right now. As long as you are breathing, your story is not finished. You still have time to change your mindset. You still have time to protect your peace. You still have time to stop mentally imprisoning yourself. You still have time to become the person you were always meant to be. But do not keep waiting forever, because time is moving whether you pay attention to it or not. Chapter 7. Risk it all and choose happiness. At some point in life, every person faces a powerful question. Do you continue living safely but emotionally empty? Or do you finally risk everything to become truly alive? Most people never ask themselves this question honestly, because deep inside they already know the answer would force them to change. It would force them to leave behind the life that looks comfortable on the outside, but feels painful inside. It would force them to stop pretending they are happy when they are actually exhausted, disconnected, and mentally trapped. So instead, they continue surviving. They continue waking up every day, doing things that slowly destroy their spirit. They remain in environments that drain their peace. They stay connected to people who make them feel emotionally small. They keep following routines that no longer make them feel alive. And little by little, their soul becomes quieter and quieter, until eventually they no longer recognize themselves anymore. This is what happens when people abandon their own happiness for too long. At first, the pain is small. You ignore your feelings just to keep life stable. You silence your heart because you are afraid of disappointing people. You sacrifice your peace because you think survival is more important than fulfillment. But after years of doing this, something dangerous begins happening inside you. You stop feeling alive. You continue existing physically, but emotionally you become numb. The excitement disappears. The curiosity disappears. The joy disappears. Life becomes repetitive and heavy because deep down your soul knows you are living against yourself. Many people spend years trapped in this state without realizing how serious it truly is. They become so used to emotional exhaustion that they start calling it adulthood. They become so familiar with stress and emptiness that they think suffering all the time is normal. They laugh less, dream less, feel less, and slowly they accept a life that no longer feels meaningful. But your soul was not created just to survive endlessly. You were not born simply to wake up, feel stressed, satisfy everyone else, and eventually die without ever truly experiencing life deeply. You were born to feel something real, to love deeply, to grow, to become yourself fully before your time runs out. And sometimes that requires risk. Sometimes choosing happiness means walking away from environments that are slowly destroying your peace. Sometimes it means disappointing people who only accepted the version of you that stayed small. Sometimes it means letting go of the need for approval and finally listening to your own heart. That is terrifying for many people because comfort feels safer than uncertainty. Even unhappy people often remain stuck because at least their pain is familiar. The unknown scares them more than the suffering they already know. So they continue living inside emotional prisons because those prisons feel predictable. But there is a painful truth many people realize too late. Comfort can quietly destroy your entire life. Not all suffering comes from dramatic tragedy. Sometimes suffering comes from slowly betraying yourself for years. Sometimes suffering comes from staying in the wrong place too long. Sometimes suffering comes from ignoring your own soul until life begins feeling meaningless. And eventually, regret becomes heavier than fear ever was. One of the saddest things in life is meeting people who gave up on themselves years ago. You can see it in their energy. Their body is alive, but their spirit looks tired. They no longer believe excitement, peace, or freedom are possible for them. Life became survival for so long that they forgot they were ever allowed to truly enjoy it. Do not let that happen to you. Do not spend your entire existence emotionally disconnected from yourself just because fear convinced you to stay comfortable forever. Yes, risk is scary. Changing your life is scary. Walking away from unhealthy situations is scary. Starting over is scary. Being misunderstood is scary. Following your own path instead of society's expectations is scary. But do you know what is even more terrifying? Waking up one day realizing your entire life passed by while you were too afraid to truly live it. That pain is much heavier than temporary fear. Many people reach old age filled with invisible regret. Not because they failed, but because they never even tried. They never allowed themselves to become who they truly were. They spent decades living for approval, staying quiet, suppressing their dreams, and pretending to be happy while their inner world slowly collapsed. And the painful part is that by the time they realize this, life has already moved incredibly fast. Time does not slow down for anyone. This is why you cannot keep postponing your happiness forever. You cannot continue telling yourself that someday you will finally start living, someday you will finally become peaceful, someday you will finally follow your heart, because someday easily becomes never. The truth is that happiness is not something that suddenly appears when life becomes perfect. Happiness often begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. It begins when you finally become honest about what is hurting your soul. It begins when you stop sacrificing your mental health just to maintain comfort. Real freedom is emotional. It is waking up without constantly feeling trapped inside your own life. It is being able to breathe deeply again. It is no longer needing everyone's approval to feel valuable. It is no longer carrying the pressure to constantly perform for the world. Many people are addicted to external validation because they forgot how to value themselves internally. They spend their whole life trying to prove their worth to others, while quietly neglecting their own emotional needs. But no amount of approval can save someone who keeps abandoning themselves internally. That is why choosing yourself is so important. Choosing yourself does not mean becoming selfish or cold. It means finally understanding that your peace matters too. Your happiness matters too. Your emotional well-being matters too. You cannot continue destroying yourself just to keep everyone else comfortable. At some point, you must decide that your soul deserves honesty. Your mind deserves peace. Your life deserves to actually feel meaningful before it ends. And yes, some people may not understand your growth. Some people become uncomfortable when you stop tolerating disrespect. Some people only like the version of you that stayed emotionally weak, quiet, and easy to control. The moment you begin protecting your peace, setting boundaries, and choosing happiness, certain people may disappear from your life. Let them. Not everyone is meant to walk with you forever. Some connections only survive when you keep betraying yourself. But real love, real friendship, and real connection should never require you to destroy your own soul just to keep someone close. The more you grow emotionally, the more you begin understanding that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. You begin realizing that happiness is not found by constantly chasing more noise, more pressure, and more approval. Happiness grows in the moments where you finally feel free to be yourself without fear. And slowly, life begins changing. Your mind becomes calmer. Your heart becomes lighter. You stop feeling emotionally suffocated every day. You begin enjoying simple moments again. You stop constantly rushing through life because you are no longer trying to escape yourself. That is what happens when you finally stop living against your own soul. Many people think risking everything means losing everything, but sometimes risking everything is actually how you finally find yourself. Sometimes the life you truly want is hiding on the other side of fear. The peace you are searching for may require difficult decisions. The freedom you want may require letting go of old versions of yourself. The happiness you deserve may require courage, but your life is worth that courage. Because one day, your story will end. One day, all the stress, fear, pressure, and opinions that controlled your mind for years will no longer matter. What will matter is whether you truly lived while you had the chance. Whether you loved deeply, whether you protected your peace, whether you became yourself fully instead of dying as a stranger to your own soul. Do not die with a life you never truly lived. Do not spend your entire existence mentally trapped by fear, approval, and endless overthinking while your real self slowly disappears underneath it all. You still have time. Time to heal. Time to grow. Time to choose peace. Time to become emotionally free. Time to stop surviving and finally start living. But you must stop waiting forever. Because life is happening now. And the greatest risk is not failing. The greatest risk is reaching the end of your life and realizing you never truly allowed yourself to live at all. Chapter 8. Stop mentally escaping your own life. One of the saddest things about modern life is that many people are physically alive but mentally absent from their own existence. Their body is here, but their mind is constantly somewhere else. They are always worrying about the future, replaying painful memories from the past, comparing themselves to others, or mentally escaping reality because they no longer know how to feel peace within themselves. This silent mental escape slowly destroys the ability to truly experience life. Many people spend their entire day distracted. The moment silence appears, they immediately search for something to avoid being alone with their thoughts. They scroll endlessly through social media, overwork themselves, constantly seek entertainment, or stay busy every second because deep inside they are uncomfortable with their own mind. And after a while, they completely lose connection with themselves. They stop listening to their emotions. They stop asking themselves what they truly need. They stop paying attention to their own exhaustion. Life becomes automatic. Wake up, distract yourself, survive the day, repeat. Their soul quietly suffers underneath endless noise and mental pressure. The dangerous part is that this lifestyle slowly becomes normal. People become addicted to distraction because distraction temporarily helps them avoid emotional pain. Instead of healing themselves, they constantly escape themselves. Instead of sitting with their emotions honestly, they numb themselves with endless stimulation and noise. But avoiding yourself never creates peace. No matter how many distractions you chase, your inner emptiness eventually returns because the real problem was never outside you. The real problem is that many people no longer know how to simply sit with themselves peacefully. This is why so many people feel exhausted even after resting physically. Their body may sleep, but their mind never truly relaxes. Their thoughts keep racing. Their emotions remain unresolved. Their nervous system stays under pressure because mentally they are always running from themselves. A person can spend years distracted while their soul slowly disappears underneath the noise. Many people are terrified of silence because silence forces them to face what they have been avoiding for years. In silence, they finally notice how unhappy they are. They notice how emotionally drained they feel. They notice how disconnected they have become from life itself. That is why some people constantly surround themselves with noise, drama, and stimulation. They fear stillness, because stillness reveals truth. But healing often begins in silence. The moment you slow down enough to truly listen to yourself, you begin understanding what your soul has been trying to tell you for years. You begin noticing the emotional weight you carry every day. You begin recognizing how much pressure you constantly place on yourself. You begin understanding how deeply overthinking, comparison, fear, and emotional suppression have affected your peace. And for many people, this realization becomes life-changing, because they finally understand that the problem was never simply the outside world. The problem was that they abandoned themselves internally for too long. Modern society teaches people how to stay busy, but very few people learn how to stay emotionally connected to themselves. Productivity becomes more important than peace. Appearance becomes more important than authenticity. Endless achievement becomes more important than emotional well-being. So people spend years chasing success while quietly losing themselves in the process. They become emotionally numb because they never slow down long enough to process what they truly feel. They ignore burnout because they think resting means weakness. They ignore sadness because they believe they must always appear strong. They ignore their own soul until eventually life begins feeling empty no matter how much they achieve. This is why so many people secretly feel lost. Not because they completely failed in life, but because they lost connection with themselves somewhere along the way. A person can have money, relationships, opportunities, and still feel emotionally disconnected if they no longer know who they truly are underneath all the pressure and expectations. This is why presence is so important. Presence means fully experiencing your life instead of constantly escaping it mentally. It means slowing down enough to notice small moments again. It means listening to your emotions instead of suppressing them immediately. It means allowing yourself to exist without constantly distracting your mind every second. Most people never fully experience the present moment because their mind is addicted to noise. When they eat, they are distracted. When they speak to loved ones, their attention is elsewhere. When beautiful moments happen, they barely notice them because their thoughts are trapped in stress and overthinking. And then one day they suddenly realize years have passed incredibly fast. Life moves quickly when you are mentally absent from it. That is why learning how to become present again is one of the most powerful things you can do for your happiness. Presence reconnects you to life. It reconnects you to your emotions, your relationships, your surroundings, and most importantly, yourself. The more present you become, the more deeply you begin feeling ordinary moments. Simple things start feeling meaningful again. A peaceful morning feels beautiful. A quiet conversation feels valuable. A deep breath feels calming. Life stops feeling like a race you are constantly losing and starts feeling like something you are actually experiencing again. But this requires courage, because slowing down means you can no longer hide from yourself. You must face your fears honestly. You must face your loneliness honestly. You must acknowledge the emotional pain you have been avoiding. You must stop pretending you are okay when deep inside you feel emotionally exhausted, and that honesty can feel uncomfortable at first. Many people spend years performing happiness while secretly struggling inside. They smile in front of others while carrying heavy emotional burdens alone. They continue functioning normally while their inner world slowly collapses from stress, anxiety, and emotional suppression. But pretending to be okay forever slowly destroys your spirit. Your soul becomes tired when your outer life and inner emotions no longer match. That is why emotional honesty is so important. Healing begins the moment you stop lying to yourself about what you truly feel. You do not need to escape your emotions constantly. You do not need to numb every painful feeling immediately. Sometimes healing simply means allowing yourself to feel honestly without judgment. Sadness is part of being human. Fear is part of being human. Confusion is part of being human. You are not weak for struggling emotionally. You are human. The problem begins when people never allow themselves to process emotions properly. Instead, they bury everything underneath distractions and constant mental noise, until eventually their emotional pain becomes overwhelming. But buried emotions never truly disappear. They stay inside the body and mind, quietly affecting your peace, your relationships, your confidence, and your happiness. That is why emotional awareness matters so much. The more aware you become of your inner world, the more emotionally free you become. You stop reacting automatically to every emotion. You stop letting fear completely control your decisions. You stop running from yourself constantly. And slowly, your mind begins calming down. You begin realizing that peace was never found in endless distraction. Peace was found in reconnecting with yourself again. Many people are searching everywhere for happiness, while completely ignoring their own inner world. But your relationship with yourself affects every part of your life. If you are constantly disconnected from yourself emotionally, nothing external will fully satisfy you for long. This is why learning how to sit peacefully with yourself is such an important skill. A person who can sit alone peacefully without needing constant distraction becomes emotionally powerful. They no longer depend on endless stimulation just to escape their own thoughts. They no longer feel terrified of silence because silence no longer feels empty to them. Instead, silence becomes healing. In silence, you begin hearing your real thoughts clearly. In silence, your nervous system slowly relaxes. In silence, your soul finally has space to breathe again after years of mental chaos. And this changes your entire relationship with life. You stop constantly running emotionally. You stop chasing distractions trying to avoid yourself. You stop living mechanically every day without awareness. Instead, you begin becoming fully present for your own existence again. And that may be one of the most beautiful transformations a human being can experience. Because life is not meant to simply be survived. Life is meant to be felt deeply. The sound of laughter, the peace of quiet mornings, the beauty of ordinary moments, the connection between human hearts, the feeling of being fully alive instead of mentally absent. All of this becomes visible again when you stop escaping your own life mentally. You begin understanding that happiness is not hidden somewhere far away in the future. Happiness begins growing the moment you reconnect with yourself and fully return to the present moment. because your life is not waiting somewhere ahead of you. Your life is happening now. And if you spend your entire existence mentally escaping reality, you may eventually realize you were alive for years, without ever truly experiencing the beauty of being alive at all. Chapter 9. Stop abandoning yourself to keep other people comfortable. One of the most painful things a person can do is slowly abandon themselves just to keep other people comfortable. Many people spend years sacrificing their peace, hiding their real emotions, tolerating disrespect, and staying silent about what hurts them because they are afraid of losing people. They become so focused on protecting relationships, avoiding conflict, and gaining approval that they completely forget to protect themselves emotionally. At first, this behavior may seem harmless. You ignore small things to keep peace. You stay quiet to avoid arguments. You pretend something does not hurt you because you do not want to disappoint anyone. But after doing this for years, you slowly begin losing connection with yourself. Your real feelings become buried underneath the constant pressure to make everyone else happy. And eventually, your soul becomes exhausted. Many people are suffering emotionally not because life destroyed them, but because they spent too much time betraying themselves for the comfort of others. They constantly say yes when they want to say no. They tolerate behavior that damages their mental health. They remain loyal to people who continuously drain their energy. They give endless chances to people who never truly value them. And the sad truth is that many people do this because they are terrified of being alone. They fear rejection so deeply that they would rather stay emotionally miserable than risk losing connection. They become attached to unhealthy relationships, unhealthy environments, and unhealthy patterns, simply because familiarity feels safer than loneliness. But staying connected to people who constantly destroy your peace is its own form of loneliness. There are people surrounded by others who still feel emotionally empty every single day because they no longer feel seen, respected, or understood. They continue giving love, energy, attention, and emotional support while quietly neglecting themselves in the process. This is what happens when you make everyone else's comfort more important than your own emotional well-being. The dangerous thing about people-pleasing is that it slowly teaches you to ignore your own needs. You become so focused on avoiding disappointment that you stop asking yourself an important question: what is this situation doing to my soul? Many people never ask this question. They only ask whether other people are happy with them. So they continue shrinking themselves emotionally just to remain accepted. But no relationship should require you to destroy yourself in order to maintain it. Real love should not constantly drain your spirit. Real friendship should not force you to abandon your peace. Real connection should not make you feel emotionally unsafe all the time. Yet many people normalize emotional suffering because they became afraid of losing others. They tolerate disrespect because they fear being alone. They remain in painful situations because they believe leaving would make them selfish. They continue carrying emotional burdens that slowly break them inside because they were taught that sacrificing themselves is a sign of love. But constantly abandoning yourself is not love. It is emotional self-destruction. You cannot spend your entire life ignoring your own pain just to make everyone else comfortable around you. Eventually your mind, body and soul begin collapsing underneath the weight of unspoken emotions and emotional exhaustion. Many people are physically tired because they are emotionally drained from constantly carrying relationships that no longer feel healthy. They overthink every interaction. They walk on emotional eggshells. They feel anxious around people who are supposed to bring peace into their life. And after a while, they stop feeling emotionally safe anywhere. This is why boundaries are so important. Boundaries are not walls created to hurt people. Boundaries are protection for your peace. They are the moment you finally decide that your emotional well-being matters too. They are the moment you stop allowing guilt to control every decision you make. Many people feel guilty when they finally start protecting themselves because they spent years prioritizing everyone else first. The moment they begin saying no, choosing peace, or walking away from unhealthy situations, they suddenly feel selfish. But protecting your mental health is not selfish. You are not selfish for needing peace. You are not selfish for needing rest. You are not selfish for refusing to tolerate constant disrespect. You are not selfish for protecting your emotional energy. The truth is that some people only liked the version of you that had no boundaries. They only felt comfortable when you constantly sacrificed yourself to make life easier for them. The moment you begin valuing yourself more, certain people may become uncomfortable because they no longer have unlimited access to your energy. And that is okay. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. One of the hardest lessons people learn is that sometimes you must let go of certain relationships in order to save yourself emotionally. Some people are attached to your weakness, not your growth. They prefer the version of you that stayed quiet, emotionally available all the time, and willing to tolerate anything just to keep the connection alive. But your peace is more valuable than forced connection. Many people remain emotionally trapped because they keep holding on to relationships that their soul already knows are hurting them. Deep inside, they feel exhausted every time they interact with certain people. Their body feels tense. Their mind feels anxious. Their peace disappears. But they continue staying because they fear loneliness more than emotional suffering. This is why emotional awareness matters so much. Your body often recognizes emotional danger before your mind fully accepts it. Constant stress around certain people is not something to ignore. Feeling emotionally drained after every interaction is not normal. Feeling afraid to express yourself honestly is not healthy. Yet many people continue tolerating these situations for years, and over time, they begin losing themselves completely. They stop speaking honestly. They stop expressing emotions naturally. They become emotionally smaller just to avoid conflict. Their personality slowly disappears underneath fear, anxiety, and emotional suppression. That is not living. Real living requires emotional honesty. It requires courage. It requires respecting yourself enough to stop abandoning your own soul just to maintain unhealthy connections. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from what constantly destroys your peace. And yes, that can hurt deeply. Letting go is painful. Outgrowing people is painful. Accepting that certain connections are unhealthy is painful. But staying in emotionally damaging situations forever is far more painful in the long run. Temporary loneliness heals faster than lifelong emotional exhaustion. Many people fear being alone because they have never learned how to feel complete within themselves. They depend on relationships for identity, validation, and emotional security. So even unhealthy relationships feel better than being alone with their own thoughts. But solitude is not the same as loneliness. Solitude can actually become healing when you stop using relationships to escape yourself emotionally. Time alone allows you to reconnect with your own thoughts, your own needs, and your own identity without constant outside influence. This is why many emotionally strong people become comfortable being alone, not because they hate people, but because they finally learned how to enjoy their own peace. A person who respects themselves emotionally becomes very careful about who they allow close to their energy. They stop chasing approval from everyone. They stop begging for love from people who continuously hurt them. They stop sacrificing their mental health just to avoid disappointing others. And slowly, their life becomes lighter. Their mind becomes calmer because they are no longer carrying relationships built on emotional imbalance. Their nervous system relaxes because they no longer constantly feel pressured to perform, please, or emotionally overextend themselves. For the first time in years, they begin breathing freely again. This is what happens when you stop abandoning yourself. You begin remembering who you truly are underneath all the fear, pressure, and emotional exhaustion. You begin realizing that your needs matter, your feelings matter, your peace matters. And the beautiful thing is that once you stop betraying yourself emotionally, your entire relationship with life changes. You stop accepting less than you deserve. You stop tolerating constant disrespect. You stop shrinking yourself to fit inside unhealthy environments. You stop chasing people who continuously make you feel emotionally empty. Instead, you begin choosing what protects your soul. Because life is too short to spend it constantly sacrificing yourself for people who never truly value your peace. One day your life will end, and when that day comes, one of the greatest tragedies would be realizing you spent your entire existence emotionally abandoning yourself just to keep everyone else comfortable around you. Do not let that become your story. Choose honesty. Choose boundaries. Choose emotional freedom. Choose peace. Choose yourself before your soul becomes completely exhausted from carrying everyone else while neglecting your own heart. Because you deserve relationships that feel safe, peaceful, honest, and emotionally healthy. And most importantly, you deserve to exist in your own life without constantly betraying yourself just to avoid losing people who were never truly good for your spirit in the first place. Chapter 10. One day you will realize nothing mattered more than inner peace. Most people spend their entire life chasing things they believe will finally make them happy. They chase money, success, attention, approval, relationships, and achievements, hoping that one day they will finally feel complete inside. They sacrifice their sleep, their mental health, and their emotional peace trying to build the perfect life. But after years of chasing everything outside themselves, many people eventually realize something shocking. Nothing matters more than inner peace. Because without peace, even beautiful things become difficult to enjoy. A restless mind can ruin success. An anxious mind can ruin relationships. An exhausted soul can ruin ordinary moments that were meant to feel beautiful. Many people do not understand this until life humbles them deeply. At first, they believe happiness is hidden somewhere far away, in the future. They think peace will come after they achieve enough, earn enough, or prove themselves enough. So they spend years mentally running, constantly trying to reach the next destination. But the problem is that the mind never stops chasing. Once one goal is achieved, another immediately appears. Once one problem disappears, another takes its place. Life continues moving, and the person who never learned how to feel peaceful internally remains emotionally restless, no matter how much external success they achieve. This is why there are people who seem successful from the outside, but secretly feel empty inside. They smile publicly while struggling privately. They appear confident while silently battling anxiety. They continue functioning every day while emotionally feeling disconnected from themselves and from life itself. Because peace does not come from appearances. Peace comes from what happens inside your mind when the world becomes quiet. Can you sit alone peacefully without feeling empty? Can you rest without guilt destroying your mind? Can you experience the present moment without constantly worrying about the future? Can you love yourself without needing endless approval from others? These questions matter more than most people realize. Many people are mentally exhausted because they have spent years fighting life instead of learning how to live peacefully within it. They fight reality constantly. They fight the past. They fight uncertainty. They fight themselves emotionally every single day, and after a while, their soul becomes tired. This is why inner peace becomes priceless as you grow older. You begin realizing that protecting your mind is more important than impressing people. You begin understanding that peace is more valuable than unnecessary drama, fake validation, or endless emotional chaos. You begin seeing how many people are destroying themselves mentally while pretending everything is okay. The modern world constantly pressures people to do more, achieve more, and become more. People are taught to constantly chase productivity while ignoring their emotional well-being completely. Rest becomes associated with laziness. Slowing down becomes associated with weakness. So millions of people live under constant pressure without ever giving their mind real peace. But the human soul was never designed to live under endless stress forever. Eventually the body becomes exhausted, the mind becomes overwhelmed, emotions become unstable, and suddenly people begin realizing that no achievement feels meaningful if they lose themselves in the process. Many people sacrifice their peace for years trying to build a life that eventually leaves them emotionally empty. They work constantly but never feel calm. They chase approval but never feel enough. They stay busy but never feel fulfilled. They surround themselves with noise but still feel lonely. Because inner peace cannot be replaced by external success. The truth is that some of the happiest moments in life are actually very simple. A peaceful morning, a deep conversation, a quiet walk, time with someone you genuinely love, sitting calmly without anxiety controlling your mind, feeling emotionally free enough to enjoy ordinary moments without constantly overthinking everything. But most people are too mentally distracted to fully experience these moments. Their mind is always somewhere else, always rushing, always worrying, always comparing, always carrying emotional weight that slowly steals their ability to enjoy life deeply. This is why learning how to protect your peace becomes one of the most important skills in life. Protecting your peace means becoming careful about what you allow into your mind. It means no longer giving unlimited energy to negativity, unnecessary drama, toxic relationships, and constant emotional chaos. It means realizing that not every argument deserves your attention, and not every person deserves access to your emotional energy. Many people suffer because they absorb too much negativity from the world around them. They carry other people's emotions, opinions, and problems until their own mind becomes heavy. They spend hours mentally replaying situations that are not even worth their peace. And over time this slowly damages their spirit. A peaceful mind requires boundaries. You cannot constantly surround yourself with stress, negativity, emotional manipulation, and endless mental noise while expecting to feel calm internally. The energy around you affects your emotional state more than you realize. This is why emotionally mature people become selective about who and what they allow close to their peace. They stop chasing unnecessary conflict. They stop wasting energy proving themselves to everyone. They stop explaining themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. They stop sacrificing their emotional well-being just to remain accepted. And because of this, their life becomes calmer. Not perfect, but calmer. That is an important difference. Inner peace does not mean your life suddenly becomes free from problems. Difficult moments still happen. Pain still exists. Disappointment still exists. But inner peace changes how you experience those struggles emotionally. A peaceful person can go through difficult seasons without completely collapsing mentally, because their mind is no longer constantly fighting reality. They accept that life contains uncertainty and imperfection, but they do not allow every problem to destroy their emotional balance completely. This emotional stability becomes powerful, because once your mind becomes calmer, your entire experience of life changes. You stop reacting impulsively to everything. You stop taking every small situation personally. You stop allowing temporary problems to steal your long-term peace. And slowly, life feels lighter. Many people think power comes from control, money, or status. But real power is emotional control. Real power is remaining peaceful in a world full of chaos. Real power is protecting your soul in a society constantly trying to exhaust your mind. A person with inner peace becomes difficult to break emotionally because their happiness no longer depends entirely on external circumstances. They no longer need constant validation to feel valuable. They no longer depend on attention to feel alive. They no longer chase every distraction trying to escape themselves. Instead, they become deeply connected to their own inner world. And this connection changes everything. They begin appreciating life more deeply. Small moments become meaningful again. Gratitude becomes natural instead of forced. They stop constantly rushing through life, because they finally understand something many people never realize until it is too late. Life itself is the gift. Not just the achievements, not just the goals, not just the success. The simple experience of being alive is already precious. But people miss this truth because their mind is always focused on what is missing instead of appreciating what already exists. Inner peace helps you return to the present moment again. It reminds you that happiness is not always hidden somewhere in the future. Sometimes, happiness is simply being mentally free enough to enjoy what is already in front of you. A calm mind notices beauty everywhere. A restless mind notices problems everywhere. That is why your inner state shapes your entire experience of reality. If your mind is constantly filled with fear, pressure, comparison, and emotional chaos, life will always feel heavy, no matter how much you achieve externally. But when your mind becomes calmer, ordinary life itself begins feeling more beautiful. This is why many wise people eventually stop chasing unnecessary things. They realize peace is more valuable than endless competition. They realize protecting their mental health matters more than impressing strangers. They realize emotional freedom matters more than constantly proving their worth to the world. And perhaps most importantly, they realize time is too precious to spend constantly suffering mentally over things that do not truly matter. One day, your life will end. And in that final moment, you will not care about many of the things currently stressing your mind. You will not care about every argument, every opinion, every pressure, or every unrealistic expectation you carried for years. What will matter is whether you truly lived peacefully while you had the chance, whether you appreciated life, whether you loved deeply, whether you protected your soul, whether you allowed yourself to experience joy instead of constantly living inside stress and emotional exhaustion. Because, at the end of everything, inner peace may be the only thing that truly makes life feel meaningful. And once you finally understand that, your entire way of living begins to change. Chapter 11. The life you want begins the moment you stop betraying yourself. Many people spend years searching for a better life without realizing the biggest thing destroying their happiness is the constant betrayal happening inside themselves every single day. They betray their emotions to avoid conflict. They betray their dreams to stay comfortable. They betray their peace to keep other people happy. They betray their true personality because they are afraid of judgment. Slowly they become disconnected from who they really are. and after a while, they no longer recognize themselves anymore. This is one of the deepest forms of suffering a human being can experience. Imagine waking up every day, living a life that no longer feels true to your soul. Imagine constantly pretending to be okay, while your mind feels exhausted and your heart feels heavy. Imagine spending years ignoring your real feelings just to maintain approval, comfort, or stability. This quiet self-betrayal destroys people slowly. At first, the signs are small. You begin saying yes when you actually want to say no. You stay silent when something hurts you deeply. You ignore your exhaustion because you believe you must keep going no matter how overwhelmed you feel. You continue tolerating situations that damage your peace because you fear disappointing people or starting over. But over time, these small betrayals become dangerous. Every time you ignore your truth, your inner world becomes weaker. Every time you abandon your own needs completely, your emotional health suffers. Every time you silence your soul just to stay accepted, you move further away from the life you truly want. And eventually, life begins feeling empty, no matter how successful it looks from the outside. This is why so many people secretly feel lost, even when they appear fine publicly. Their outer life and inner truth no longer match. They smile while suffering internally. They continue functioning normally while feeling emotionally disconnected from themselves. Because deep inside, the soul knows when it is being ignored. Your mind may try to justify unhappiness for years, but your spirit always feels the truth. It feels when you are forcing yourself to stay in places that destroy your peace. It feels when you continue relationships that drain your energy. It feels when you abandon your own dreams because fear convinced you to settle for less. And eventually, your soul becomes tired of carrying that emotional weight. Many people think the life they want is hidden somewhere outside them. They think happiness will arrive through more money, more success, or more approval. But often, the life you truly want begins the moment you stop betraying yourself internally. Because peace cannot grow where self-betrayal exists. You cannot feel emotionally free while constantly ignoring your own truth. You cannot feel deeply alive while pretending to be someone you are not. You cannot build real happiness while continuously abandoning your emotional needs just to satisfy everyone else around you. At some point, honesty becomes necessary. You must become honest about what is hurting your spirit. Honest about what no longer feels healthy. Honest about the emotional exhaustion you keep pretending does not exist. Honest about the fact that some parts of your life may no longer align with who you truly are becoming. And this honesty can feel terrifying. Because once you fully admit the truth to yourself, change becomes unavoidable. Many people avoid honesty because they know it may require difficult decisions. It may require leaving environments that feel familiar. It may require disappointing people. It may require walking away from unhealthy patterns that once felt safe. So instead, they continue betraying themselves because staying emotionally miserable feels easier than facing uncertainty. But the problem is that self-betrayal always has consequences. The longer you ignore your own soul, the heavier life begins feeling. Your energy decreases. Your motivation disappears. Your peace slowly fades away. You may continue surviving externally, but internally something feels broken. This is why so many people feel emotionally exhausted, even when they cannot fully explain why. Their soul is tired of being ignored. Many people are carrying emotional pain, not because they are weak, but because they have spent too many years suppressing what they truly feel. They became experts at pretending they are happy, pretending they are okay, pretending certain things do not hurt them anymore. But emotional pain does not disappear simply because you ignore it. Buried emotions stay inside the body and mind. They quietly affect your peace, your relationships, your confidence, and your happiness, until eventually the emotional pressure becomes overwhelming. This is why healing begins with honesty. Healing begins when you stop lying to yourself about your feelings. It begins when you finally admit that constantly sacrificing your peace is destroying you emotionally. It begins when you acknowledge that your soul deserves more than endless survival. Many people spend their entire life waiting for someone else to save them emotionally. They wait for another person to finally make them feel complete. They wait for life to suddenly become easier. They wait for the perfect opportunity to finally become happy. But the truth is that nobody can create peace for you if you keep betraying yourself internally. Real transformation begins the moment you decide that your relationship with yourself matters. This changes everything. You begin protecting your emotional health more carefully. You stop allowing guilt to control every decision you make. You stop forcing yourself to tolerate situations that constantly destroy your peace. You stop shrinking yourself emotionally just to remain accepted. And slowly, your life begins changing from the inside out. The beautiful thing about self-respect is that it teaches you what no longer deserves access to your energy. Once you truly value your peace, certain behaviors become impossible to tolerate anymore. You no longer romanticize suffering. You no longer confuse emotional exhaustion with love. You no longer believe sacrificing yourself endlessly is the price of connection. Instead, you begin understanding something powerful. The right life will never require you to constantly betray yourself. The right relationships will not force you to abandon your emotional safety. The right path will not make your soul feel trapped every single day. The right environment will allow you to breathe, grow, and exist honestly without constantly feeling emotionally suffocated. This realization changes the way you move through life. You stop chasing things that drain your spirit. You stop seeking validation from people who do not truly value you. You stop performing for the world and begin reconnecting with yourself again. And slowly, your inner world becomes calmer. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you are no longer fighting against your own soul every single day. This is what many people do not understand about happiness. Happiness is not only about gaining more things externally. Happiness often begins with removing the things that constantly force you to betray yourself internally. Sometimes peace arrives not when you add something new to your life, but when you finally stop tolerating what continuously destroys your spirit. Many people stay emotionally trapped because they believe choosing themselves is selfish. But constantly abandoning yourself is not kindness, it is emotional self-neglect. You deserve to exist in your own life without constantly feeling emotionally disconnected from yourself. You deserve relationships where you can be honest without fear. You deserve environments where your nervous system can relax. You deserve a life where peace does not feel impossible. You deserve the freedom to become who you truly are before your time runs out. And perhaps most importantly, you deserve to stop carrying the exhausting pressure of pretending all the time. Pretending to be okay is exhausting. Pretending to enjoy a life that hurts your soul is exhausting. Pretending not to care about your emotional needs is exhausting. Your soul becomes lighter the moment honesty enters your life again. Honesty with your emotions. Honesty with your limits. Honesty about what truly matters to you. Honesty about what is no longer healthy for your spirit. This honesty may change your entire life. Yes, some people may not understand your growth. Some people may become uncomfortable when you stop sacrificing yourself endlessly. But not everyone is meant to understand your healing journey. Your responsibility is not to remain emotionally broken just to keep everyone else comfortable. Your responsibility is to protect your peace before life ends. Because one day, your story will be over. And one of the saddest realizations would be understanding that you spent your entire existence betraying yourself while trying to become everything for everyone else. Do not let that become your future. Do not die as a stranger to your own soul. The life you truly want is not as far away as you think. Often it begins with one powerful decision: the decision to stop abandoning yourself. The decision to finally listen to your own heart again. The decision to respect your emotional needs. The decision to stop pretending. The decision to become honest about what your soul truly needs in order to feel alive again. And once you make that decision, everything slowly begins changing. Your mind becomes quieter. Your heart becomes lighter. Your energy returns. Your spirit begins breathing again after years of emotional suffocation, because the life you want was never built through self-betrayal. It was always waiting on the other side of self-respect, emotional honesty, and the courage to finally choose yourself before it becomes too late. Chapter 12. Stop wasting your life trying to be everything for everyone. Many people lose themselves because they spend their entire life trying to become everything for everyone around them. They constantly carry other people's emotions, solve other people's problems, chase approval, and sacrifice their own peace just to feel accepted and needed. They become so focused on making everyone else comfortable that they completely forget to care for themselves emotionally. At first, this behavior may look kind and selfless. People praise you for always being available, always helping, always understanding, and always sacrificing your own needs. But deep inside, something slowly begins breaking. Your energy disappears. Your peace disappears. Your sense of identity begins fading because your entire life revolves around everyone else's expectations. And after a while, you no longer know who you truly are without constantly trying to please others. This is one of the biggest reasons many people feel emotionally exhausted today. They are carrying too much emotional weight that was never theirs to carry in the first place. They constantly worry about disappointing people. They overthink every interaction. They feel guilty for resting. They feel guilty for saying no. They feel guilty for choosing themselves even for a moment. So they continue giving and giving until their soul becomes completely drained. The sad truth is that many people have been conditioned to believe their value only exists in what they can do for others. They believe being needed means being loved. They believe sacrificing themselves endlessly is proof of kindness. So they spend years ignoring their own emotional needs because they are terrified of seeming selfish. But there is a dangerous difference between kindness and self-destruction. Helping people is beautiful, but constantly abandoning yourself is not healthy. Supporting others matters, but not at the cost of destroying your own mental peace. Many people become emotionally overwhelmed because they never learned how to balance compassion for others with compassion for themselves. Eventually, life begins feeling heavy all the time. Your mind becomes exhausted because you are constantly trying to manage everyone's emotions. Your body becomes tired because you rarely allow yourself real rest. Your heart becomes overwhelmed because deep inside you feel invisible even while giving everything to others. And one painful realization slowly begins appearing. The more you abandon yourself, the emptier you become inside. Many people spend years trying to earn love through sacrifice. They believe if they keep giving enough, loving enough, helping enough, and tolerating enough, people will finally appreciate them properly. But often the opposite happens. The more you continuously ignore your own boundaries, the more people begin expecting unlimited access to your energy, and eventually you become emotionally trapped. You feel responsible for everyone's happiness. You feel pressure to always stay strong. You feel guilty any time you prioritize yourself. You become emotionally available for everyone while secretly feeling unsupported yourself. This is why so many kind-hearted people silently suffer. They carry emotional burdens nobody sees. They smile while feeling exhausted internally. They continue helping others while secretly wishing someone would finally ask how they are doing emotionally. But the truth is this: you cannot spend your whole life pouring energy into everyone else while leaving nothing for yourself. Eventually, your soul begins collapsing underneath that pressure. Many people do not realize how emotionally disconnected they have become from themselves because they are constantly focused outward. Their attention is always on other people's problems, other people's opinions, other people's needs, and other people's emotions. Meanwhile, their own inner world quietly suffers in silence. They stop listening to themselves. They stop resting properly. They stop asking themselves what truly makes them happy. They stop protecting their peace. And over time, their life no longer feels emotionally sustainable. This is why boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are necessary for survival. A person without boundaries eventually becomes emotionally consumed by everyone around them. Their energy becomes scattered everywhere. Their peace disappears because they are constantly trying to rescue, satisfy, or emotionally carry other people. But you are not responsible for saving everyone. This is something many people struggle to accept. They feel guilty when they cannot fix someone's pain. They feel guilty when they need space. They feel guilty for protecting their emotional energy because they spent years believing their worth depended on endless sacrifice. But your value does not come from how much suffering you can tolerate for others. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to stop carrying emotional burdens that are destroying your mental health. Many people stay emotionally overwhelmed because they never give themselves permission to step back. They continue saying yes even when their soul desperately needs rest. They continue forcing themselves to stay available while internally feeling exhausted and emotionally numb. Eventually, this creates deep resentment, not because they are bad people, but because human beings are not designed to endlessly give without emotional recovery. Every person needs space to breathe, think, heal, and reconnect with themselves. This is why solitude becomes so important sometimes. Solitude allows you to hear your own thoughts again after constantly carrying the noise of everyone else's emotions. It allows your nervous system to calm down. It allows you to reconnect with your identity outside of constantly being needed by others. Many people are terrified of solitude because they spent their entire life attaching their identity to helping, pleasing, or emotionally carrying others. So when they are finally alone, they feel empty because they never learned how to simply exist peacefully within themselves. But solitude can become healing when you stop viewing it as loneliness. In solitude, you begin understanding yourself more deeply. You begin noticing how emotionally exhausted you truly are. You begin recognizing how often you abandoned your own needs to keep everyone else comfortable. And this awareness changes your life. You stop feeling guilty for protecting your peace. You stop over-explaining yourself constantly. You stop believing your purpose is to emotionally rescue everyone while neglecting yourself completely. Instead, you begin understanding something powerful. You deserve care too. Your emotions matter too. Your mental health matters too. Your peace matters too. Your happiness matters too. And once you truly understand this, your relationship with yourself begins changing. You stop accepting constant emotional exhaustion as normal. You stop forcing yourself to remain available for people who continuously drain your spirit. You stop tolerating relationships where you give everything while receiving almost nothing emotionally in return. And slowly, life becomes lighter. Not because problems disappear completely, but because you stop carrying responsibilities that never truly belong to you. Many emotionally exhausted people are carrying invisible pressure every single day. Pressure to stay strong, pressure to keep everyone happy, pressure to constantly prove their worth through sacrifice and emotional labor. But real love should not require you to destroy yourself. Healthy relationships allow mutual support. Healthy relationships respect your emotional limits. Healthy relationships do not constantly make you feel guilty for needing peace, space, or rest. Unfortunately, many people become so used to emotional imbalance that they begin confusing exhaustion with love. They think love means constantly sacrificing themselves. They think love means tolerating endless stress and emotional pain. But love without balance slowly destroys the human spirit. You cannot continue ignoring your own soul forever without consequences. Eventually the body becomes tired, the mind becomes overwhelmed, the heart becomes emotionally numb. Life stops feeling meaningful because your entire existence revolves around surviving everyone else's expectations. This is why choosing yourself becomes necessary at some point. Not because you stop caring about people, but because you finally understand that abandoning yourself endlessly is not sustainable. You realize your peace deserves protection too. And once you begin protecting your energy differently, everything changes. You become more emotionally calm. You stop overcommitting yourself constantly. You stop feeling responsible for everyone's emotional state. You stop chasing approval through endless sacrifice. Instead, you begin living with more balance. You help people from a place of love instead of emotional guilt. You give without completely destroying yourself in the process. You finally allow yourself moments of rest without believing you must constantly earn the right to breathe peacefully. This emotional freedom feels life-changing for many people because they spent years trapped inside patterns of self-neglect. For the first time, they begin realizing that peace is possible. They realize they do not need to constantly carry the world on their shoulders. They realize they are allowed to protect their mental health without apologizing for it. They realize that choosing themselves does not make them selfish, it makes them emotionally healthy. And perhaps most importantly, they realize life becomes far more meaningful when they stop living only for everyone else and finally start reconnecting with themselves again. Because one day, your life will end. And one of the saddest realizations would be understanding that you spent your entire existence emotionally exhausting yourself, trying to become everything for everyone, while completely forgetting to truly live your own life. Do not let that happen. Do not spend your precious years constantly sacrificing your soul for approval, validation, or emotional acceptance. Yes, kindness matters. Compassion matters. Love matters. But your own peace matters too. You deserve a life where you can breathe without constant pressure. You deserve relationships that do not emotionally consume you. You deserve rest without guilt. You deserve to feel emotionally alive instead of constantly exhausted. And most importantly, you deserve the freedom to exist as a human being, not just as someone endlessly trying to carry everyone else, while quietly losing themselves in the process. Because the moment you stop trying to be everything for everyone, you finally create space to become yourself again. At the end of life, nobody wishes they spent more time worrying, overthinking, pleasing everyone, or mentally exhausting themselves over things that never truly mattered. Most people simply wish they had lived more honestly, loved more deeply, protected their peace, and allowed themselves to truly experience life before it was too late. The truth is that life moves incredibly fast. Years disappear quietly while people remain trapped inside fear, stress, routines, and emotional pressure. Many people spend their entire existence waiting for the right time to finally become happy, but that perfect moment never arrives. And one day they suddenly realize they were alive for years, without ever truly feeling alive at all. Do not let that become your story. You were not born just to survive emotionally exhausted every day. You were not created to spend your whole life mentally trapped by fear, approval, overthinking, and endless pressure. Your soul deserves more than constant suffering. Your mind deserves peace. Your heart deserves honesty. And your life deserves to actually feel meaningful before your time runs out. Throughout this journey, you learn something powerful. You learn that constantly living for other people slowly destroys your happiness. You learn that fear becomes a prison when you allow it to control every decision. You learn that waiting forever steals your life little by little. You learn that happiness cannot be found outside yourself, while your inner world remains broken. You learn that your mind can either become your greatest source of peace or your greatest source of suffering. You learned how precious time truly is. You learned that mentally escaping your own life only creates deeper emptiness. You learned that abandoning yourself for the comfort of others slowly exhausts your soul. You learned that inner peace matters more than endless approval, pressure, or external success. And most importantly, you learned that the life you truly want begins the moment you stop betraying yourself emotionally. This is where real transformation begins. Not when life becomes perfect, not when every problem disappears, but when you finally choose yourself honestly. The moment you stop apologizing for needing peace, the moment you stop shrinking yourself to fit inside unhealthy environments, the moment you stop allowing fear to decide your future, the moment you stop living only to satisfy everyone else while neglecting your own soul, that is the moment your real life begins. Yes, choosing yourself may feel uncomfortable at first. Some people may misunderstand your growth. Some people may become distant when you stop sacrificing yourself endlessly. But losing yourself completely just to stay accepted is a far greater tragedy, because one day your story will end. And when that day comes, your money, status, social image, and endless worries will not matter anymore. What will matter is whether you truly lived while you had the chance, whether you protected your peace, whether you became yourself fully, whether you allowed your soul to experience freedom instead of spending your entire existence mentally trapped. You still have time. Time to heal, time to change,